Nobody in power wanted this truth said out loud. But Alex Eala said it anyway. And the fans absolutely lost it. She is 20 years old, from the Philippines, ranked number 29 in the whole world. And she kept getting treated like a supporting act. Stadiums were bursting at the seams. Fans stood outside in the scorching heat for hours. All just to catch a glimpse of her. And still, the WTA kept scheduling her on tiny courts. Shuffling her around like she was nobody special. Like she hadn't already changed everything. Then the truth became impossible to hide. Martina Navratilova herself stepped forward and publicly called it a mistake. That hit different. Coco Gauff apologized on a live microphone. Thousands of Filipino fans were left locked outside the wrong court entirely. People were furious. The tennis world finally had to stop and face the question. Was Alex Eala being deliberately overlooked? Or was something much darker happening inside the WTA? Stay until the very end of this video. What we uncovered goes way beyond a simple scheduling mistake. Way deeper than that. This goes straight to the heart of how the WTA treats its rising stars. And whether a young woman from Southeast Asia will ever truly get what she deserves. To really understand why this story hits so hard, you have to go back to where Alex Eala actually started out. Not in some polished tennis academy in Europe or the United States. Not on perfect grass courts or expensive red clay either. She learned this sport on a court back home in the Philippines. And by her own words, it was half a basketball court. She said it herself, plainly and without a single trace of self-pity. For the first 10 years of my tennis career, I trained on half a basketball court. And now she has played on Wimbledon's center court. She called it her ultimate dream outside of actually winning Wimbledon itself. Just sit with that for a second. The same young woman who now walks out to packed stadiums in Melbourne, Dubai, and Miami learned tennis sharing space with basketballs. That contrast is not just poetic. It tells you everything about what she had to overcome before the WTA even knew her name. Alexandra Eala was born on May 23, 2005 in Quezon City, Philippines. She reached a junior world ranking of number 2. She became the first Filipino ever to win a major junior Grand Slam title. She claimed the girls' singles crown at the 2022 US Open. But even that incredible achievement did not automatically swing open the doors of the WTA. She still had to grind all over again as a professional. Eala was barely known before the WTA 1000 event in Miami back in 2025. She was ranked 140 in the world and came in on a wild card. Then she just started knocking people out. She defeated Katie Volinets, 2017 French Open champion Yelena Ostapenko, and 2025 Australian Open champion Madison Keys back-to-back. She reached the semi-final. On a wild card. That is how she walked onto the biggest stage of her life. Not as a seeded player. Not with a protected ranking. Not with any red carpet treatment whatsoever. She came in through the side door and then kicked down every single wall standing in front of her. Here is the thing about the WTA. When a player like Eala does something extraordinary, the tour faces a fork in the road. It can recognize the moment, invest in the story, and build around the phenomenon she is becoming. Or it can just keep running the same old playbook. The same rules built for players who already fit the mold that existed long before she arrived. And by 2026, the answer became crystal clear. Because even after everything she had done, even with fans flying across continents just to watch her play, Eala kept getting treated like a second-tier act. And the evidence was absolutely impossible to ignore any longer. January 2026. Melbourne Park. The Australian Open. The biggest Grand Slam in the Southern Hemisphere and arguably the most electric atmosphere in tennis every single year. Alex Eala arrives in Melbourne as a full-blown global star this time. No longer the unknown wild card from a year before. She is the first Filipino to crack the WTA Top 50. Her face is on billboards. Her brand deals are stacking up fast. Her fan base has become one of the most passionate and visible in the entire sport today. Filipino flags were draped all across the venue during her first-round match against Alicia Parks. Long queues were snaking out of the stadium throughout the whole contest. People were everywhere, desperate to get inside. And yet the match was assigned to Court 6. Not Rod Laver Arena. Not Margaret Court Arena. Not even one of the medium-sized show courts that regularly host players with far smaller global followings than hers. Court 6. A small, limited-capacity venue with nowhere near enough seats to handle the demand that Alex Eala had created simply by showing up. The scenes outside were absolutely chaotic. Fans who had flown in from the Philippines, who had taken days off work, who had saved for months, were locked out completely. They stood in lines stretching further than anyone had ever anticipated. Because the Australian Open scheduling team simply had not done the math on what Alex Eala meant to the world in 2026. Martina Navratilova came out and stated publicly that the Australian Open organizers had made a serious mistake with the scheduling of Eala's match. When the greatest women's tennis champion in history publicly calls out a grand slam for mishandling a player's scheduling, that is not a minor footnote. That is a verdict. Fans exploded online. One wrote, "Putting Eala on Court 6 is just dumb." Another said, "They know her appeal and should have pushed for a better stage." A third simply said, "She should easily be on an arena court." And one fan summed it up perfectly, "To make this mistake once is dumb, to ever do it again is unforgivable." But here is the question that nobody was asking loudly enough. Was it really just a mistake? Or was it a pattern? If Melbourne had been a one-off, maybe you could chalk it up to poor planning. Maybe they simply misjudged the demand. Fine, it happens sometimes. But then came Dubai. And suddenly the pattern became completely undeniable. February 2026. The Dubai Tennis Championships. Eala had been dazzling in the early rounds, filling center court night after night. Filipino supporters packed the venue and created an atmosphere the UAE had rarely ever witnessed for a women's tennis match before. It was something special. But the powers that be still had not done enough to capitalize on her popularity. They kept scheduling her at strange times on the wrong courts. Eventually, after mounting fan pressure and loud public criticism, the tournament organizers gave in. They placed Eala in the headline final slot of the night session for her second-round match. And the reaction confirmed exactly what everyone had already known. The stadium was completely full. The energy inside was absolutely electric. The people had shown up, just like they always do when Eala is finally given the stage she actually deserves. And then something truly remarkable happened. Eala's quarterfinal opponent was Coco Gauff, one of the biggest names in the entire sport. A Grand Slam champion and global superstar in her own right. And after her match, Gauff stepped up to the microphone and did something almost unheard of in professional tennis. She apologized. Right there in her post-match interview. She acknowledged how long Eala's fans had been waiting to watch their favorite player compete. Read that again. Coco Gauff apologized to Alex Eala's fans on live television at a major WTA event. Let that sink in. That is the level of cultural weight Eala had built up. So massive and so visible that a fellow superstar felt publicly compelled to acknowledge it. But here is where the controversy gets even deeper. For the quarterfinals, the WTA and the tournament made a genuinely baffling decision. Eala, who had closed out the center court night sessions in both the second and third rounds, was moved to open the night session instead of closing it. Why does that matter so much? Because of what it meant for millions of fans back home in the Philippines. The first match of the Dubai evening session would begin at 11 p.m. local Philippine time. If Eala's quarterfinal ran longer than 2 hours, it would not even start until past 1 a.m. for Filipino supporters. Millions of people staying awake through the night. All arranged around a schedule that felt like it was designed without them even in mind at all. And the damage did not stop there. After Eala's match, former world number 3 and 4-time WTA 1000 champion Elena Vesnina was set to play in front of just a few hundred people. She could have had a packed, roaring stadium had she simply been scheduled before Eala instead. The WTA's one decision had managed to simultaneously fail 2 players at once. 2 wrongs wrapped up inside a single scheduling call. And the fans watching all of it unfold were absolutely furious. So what exactly is the WTA trying to protect? And who is quietly being left behind in the process? This is where it gets even more personal. and even more revealing about how the WTA's own internal systems can work against the players it claims to celebrate. March 2026. Alex Eala reaches a career-high ranking of world number 29. It is a historic, landmark moment for the sport. She becomes the highest-ranked Filipino player in the entire history of the WTA Tour. The first Filipino to ever break into the top 30. Back home in the Philippines, it is front-page news everywhere. She is being spoken about in the same breath as Manny Pacquiao in terms of national significance. And then within just days, the WTA's ranking system delivers a brutal gut punch. By Wednesday of Miami Open week, Eala had dropped all the way to number 50 in the live unofficial rankings. The WTA uses a 52-week rolling point system. Players lose the points they earned from the same tournament the previous year once that event comes around again. In Eala's case, the live rankings reflected the loss of 390 points she had earned from her brilliant semifinal run at the 2025 Miami Open. Her total dropped from 1,525 points down to 1,145 points. Just like that, 21 ranking places gone in a single day. Not because she lost a match. Not because she performed badly. But because the system reset the clock on the very moment that had made her famous. Now, to be fair, this system applies to every single player on the tour. It was not created specifically to go after Eala. But here is the cruel irony. The system disproportionately punishes breakthrough players. The ones who came from absolutely nowhere, with no points buffer to fall back on. Eala did not have 2,000 points built up from years of deep tournament runs. She had one magical Miami week. And when that week's clock expired, the system took back everything it had given her. Eala herself spoke about the whirlwind on the Served podcast with Andy Roddick. She said it is hard to really see yourself as someone with that kind of influence. She said nothing changed much about who she is between 2025 and 2026. It is just that her success skyrocketed, and she is very grateful for it. That quote is striking because of the quiet contradiction buried inside it. Nothing changed in who she is. But everything changed in how the world sees her and how the WTA treats her. Her fame exploded. Her fan base went global. Her matches sell out entire stadiums. And yet on paper, in the only number the WTA officially counts, she was briefly back to number 50. A ranking that does not even begin to capture what Alex Eala actually means to this sport in 2026. During the Miami Open itself, another flashpoint erupted. In her first-round match against German veteran Laura Siegemund, Eala confronted the chair umpire right in the middle of the match. She said, "Can you watch her time? She is delaying again. I was literally about to serve." And she just stopped the point and turned around. The umpire told both players to be mindful of the shot clock. But statistics from that match showed Siegemund was breaking the shot clock rule on 85% of her serve points. Eala was doing it on 57%. The numbers backed Eala completely. And the system still found a way to redirect the accountability back onto her shoulders. Every single fan watching at home knew exactly what that exchange felt like. Because this was not really about a shot clock. This was a 20-year-old from Southeast Asia asking for basic fairness and being told to watch herself instead. No story about Alex Eala and the WTA in 2026 would be complete without addressing the other side of this tension. The side that made some people deeply uncomfortable and others genuinely angry. Alex Eala's fan base is unlike anything the WTA has seen in recent memory. They are loud, passionate, devoted, and enormous in number. They book international flights. They buy merchandise. They fill stadiums from Abu Dhabi all the way to Melbourne. They wave Filipino flags in venues that had never seen them before. By any commercial measure, they are an asset the WTA should be actively treasuring and protecting. But in Dubai's third round, things got complicated. During Eala's third-round win over Sorana Cîrstem, a large portion of the crowd crossed a line. They cheered missed first serves and unforced errors from her opponent. That is not passionate support anymore. That is disrespect. And Cîrstem, a seasoned professional with over a decade of experience at the highest level, was visibly affected by it. It sparked a fierce debate online that quickly split into two very different camps. One side argued the fans were clearly out of line. Tennis has a code of conduct rooted in respect for both players on the court. Eala's popularity cannot be used as a shield against basic sportsmanship. The other side argued the backlash was loaded with something far less comfortable. A quiet resistance to this new wave of supporters who simply did not fit the traditional tennis demographic. And honestly, that argument has real weight to it too. Many of Eala's fans are completely brand new to tennis. She is the only Filipino tennis star the country has ever had. She is introducing an entire nation to this sport for the very first time. Ahead of the first ever WTA event held in the Philippines, the tournament's official Instagram account posted reminders about basic tennis rules and etiquette, including instructions to stay quiet during play so players can focus. That context matters enormously. These are not fans who grew up learning tennis customs from childhood. They discovered the sport because of one specific player. A player who looks like them, speaks their language, and represents something tennis has never once offered their nation before. They are still learning. They are still growing. Penalizing them for that, or worse, using their passion as an excuse to sideline Eala, would be a profound failure of everything the WTA claims to stand for in terms of growing the global game. But the tension exposed something the WTA simply cannot afford to keep ignoring. One analyst put it bluntly, Eala risks the wider tennis world turning against her if her fans cannot get this right. Right now she is beloved almost universally. But that will not last forever if the behavior continues unchecked on the court sidelines. Here is the real truth sitting right at the center of all of this. The WTA wants Alex Eala's popularity. It wants her fan base's money, their ticket purchases, their social media engagement, and their eyeballs. But it has not built the systems to support what she actually represents. Not the scheduling intelligence, not the ranking protections for breakthrough players, not the fan education infrastructure. It is benefiting from a revolution it never planned for. And the players, the fans, and the sport itself are all paying the price for that lack of preparation. Alex Eala did not start a controversy. She started a conversation. A conversation about fairness, about how tennis handles its rising stars from non-traditional markets, about whether the WTA is built for the future or still stuck in the past. She showed up on a half basketball court in the Philippines. She made it all the way to Wimbledon's center court. And in between, she exposed every single crack in the system that tried to contain her. Not with words. Just with her sheer presence on that court every single time she walked out. The question now is not whether Alex Eala is big enough for the WTA. The question is whether the WTA is finally ready to be big enough for Alex Eala. So what do you think? Is the WTA doing enough to support its newest global superstar? Or is this just the beginning of a much bigger reckoning to come? Drop your answer in the comments right now. We read every single one of them. If this story hit home for you, if this is the kind of deep women's tennis content you have been looking for, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover the rivalries, the controversies, and the truths the mainstream media will not touch.